If you have a story you want to submit to the channel, go to astheravendreams.com and click the button to send it my way. And as always, thank you. Around 2012, I had a missing time experience. My best friend and I rented a house together. We were both in our early 20s and working full-time jobs. I'm not sure why, but the house always gave me creepy vibes. I especially hated being alone in the house. Since we were young at the time, we were always looking for fun stuff to do. We lived in a college town that had kind of aged out of that lifestyle, so we found other hobbies. Chat roulette was a big thing back then, and we would get on there in the evening and talk to random people. One night we stayed up a little past midnight talking and laughing, drinking a little wine before going to bed. The next morning is when things got weird. I woke up as usual around 7 a.m. It took less than an hour to shower, get dressed, and to walk my dog. I only lived 5 minutes from where I worked, and I had to be at work by 8, so this was my usual routine. The time of year that it was still a little dark when I got up. My small dog slept with me, and I would give her morning pets and tell myself that I would take her out after my shower when it wasn't as dark, so I went to take my shower. I had one of those Jack and Jill bathrooms, and so I had to go into the bathroom and then shut the door leading into my housemate's bedroom. I remember hearing her alarm clock going off and she was still sleeping. I come out of my shower and go into my bedroom to see that it was bright daylight, and I grabbed my phone and saw that it was almost 9 a.m. I was supposed to be at work by 8. This would have meant that I had been in the shower for almost 2 hours. I know this couldn't have been because it was an old house and we did not have a lot of hot water. I was used to quick showers. While I'm holding my phone, I see I have a ton of missed calls. I listened to a voicemail from my dad saying that my boss had called him looking for me. He was my work emergency contact. Then there was a knock at my bedroom door. Not my house door, the actual door to my bedroom. It was a police officer doing a welfare check. I tell him I'm not dressed as I'm still in my towel for my shower, and I ask how he got into my home. He said that he came in because the door to my home was wide open. I thank him for coming to check and tell him that I'm okay, and he asks me to call my boss and let her know that I'm okay. He left, and I'm completely anxious and disoriented. I called my dad and then my boss and told them that I was okay, but that I had overslept. I didn't know how to explain what had really happened. I go check on my housemate's dog, who was still in his little kennel barking like crazy at this point, and lock the door to the house, which I guess the officer closed on his way out. I then called my best friend / housemate and told her everything. She was already at work at this point. She said that she remembered closing the door to the house, but apologized, thinking maybe she just didn't pull it together hard enough. I ended up going to work super late with wet hair still. I had a mean boss at the time, and I was so afraid that I would get fired for my unexplained tardiness. To this day, I don't know what happened between when I woke up and when I got out of the shower. Nothing else like this has ever happened again. But I did not sleep well after that. I was very weirded out. Hi, Raven. I'm not sure which subcategory this should be labeled in. I guess it depends on what your beliefs are. In the time of these events back in 2012, I was raised Lutheran, but I've been an atheist since my teens in the 90s. I was going on summer holiday with a group of friends. I was married, but my husband was afraid to fly, so he stayed at home in Finland, as we took off for a week's trip to Greece. That would be the same time zone in both countries. The first night we arrived to our hotel, We had dinner and decided to head to our rooms for well-needed sleep. There were thick walls and I could not hear my neighbors at all. I was ready to drift into slumber around 1 a.m. when all of a sudden I heard a clear, very official female voice. It just said one word: fire. I jumped up, asked who was there in my room, but no answer. I switched the light on and indeed the room was empty. There were no smoke alarms ringing, so I thought this was just my mind playing tricks on me. I was a bit tired from the day's traveling, so I went back to bed and fell asleep. In the morning, I checked my phone and there was a text message from my husband, sent at 2 a.m. Barely escaped the house fire at my friend's house. My ponytail was smoking, but no harm done. I immediately called him to get more information. He picked up and explained that he had been playing poker at his friend's place. Boys' night, as wife was out of town. The neighbor's television set had exploded, and the 2-apartment wooden house had quickly caught on fire. The neighbor had banged on the door and they all managed to run out on time, except the neighbor's dog. The house burned through. I was happy to hear that he was physically okay, but I still have no knowledge what quantum warning system caused me to receive this information of imminent danger as the fire was happening. Was it just our minds connecting on an astral level? Or perhaps my guardian angel that I did not have at that point in my life? I was walking my dog on my property, in the backyard. My dog, Sophie, was sniffing the ground, and could not have seen above the wisteria plants in the backyard at all. This was about 10 a.m. Our fence cuts through our property, because we didn't have the money to go all the way around it. Movement caught my eye almost in front of me, and I saw just on the other side, a pony. Not as tall as a horse. This pony was blacker than black, like a shadow in the dead of the night. It walked for 7 steps until it went behind a bush that grew on our side of the fence. I hurried to the fence to look at it, about 25 feet, and it was gone. I looked in all directions and could not see it. It left no hoof prints in the wet leaves on the ground. It had rained that morning. There were water droplets on the tree leaves and pine needles along the fence line as though nothing had disturbed them. 3 trees that grew close together that the pony would have to go around were not disturbed. It had vanished as quickly as it had appeared. No one near our house had horses, and it could not have walked out of sight so quickly. I also have a second story. My son and I got a movie from the store when it came out called Mars Attacks. I liked this movie very much. We kept it with our other movies in the sci-fi section. One day I was going to watch it, and I couldn't find it. My son, knowing that we had it, couldn't find it either. We looked through our 1,000 movies that we have, in all sections, and in the whole room, and it was not there. We knew where it was, but could not find it anywhere. 6 months later, we ended up giving up and just ordered it off of the internet. I hope that this one stays put. A few years ago, I had a roommate who was borrowing my car to drive for Lyft so that I could get a referral bonus. We were sharing the hours of the car and it started to create tension between us. I was also in the throes of addiction, and he had recently gotten a new partner who he was spending more time with. At the time, I needed more emotional support and was both saddened by the loss of time and stressed about sharing the car. There was an unhealthy combination of feeling excluded and not feeling like the time without my car was being used towards gaining the referral, which we never met because of an argument that we got in. One night, I had mentioned that I wasn't feeling like his time with the car was being responsibly used. Lyft showed me the tracking of his hours. And honestly, I can't remember the exact details, but I asked for the car back at a certain time, and not to be disturbed because I was ill, both of which were ignored. He hadn't been tracking hours that day, and the car was returned late, and my sleep was interrupted to have an emotionally heavy conversation, which I wasn't in a state to do. Anyway, at the end of the argument, I asked for the car keys to be returned, and he announced he would be moving out that night, which he did. In the morning, I went to retrieve the spare keys that he had left on top of my party favor savings box, and went to place an order based on its contents, and then went to leave for work, but couldn't find my regular keys. I checked my coat where they should have been, but couldn't find them. In a rush, I took the spare keys and left. Upon returning from my day job, I continued scrambling around the house looking for my keys, checking all my shoes. Yes, they had once fallen into some boots and pant pockets, etc., but I still couldn't find them. I then headed for the party favor box, only to find that it was empty. Naturally, I assumed that he took the money in place of the keys, since he was also supposed to receive a bonus from Lyft for completing a certain number of rides, which he would not be doing since I took the car privileges away, and assumed that he must have also taken my regular keys to further mess with me. I called and texted asking what happened to the money and the keys. No accountability. I just assumed he was being a dick and lying. A few months later, I moved out of that apartment. While packing, I painstakingly looked through anywhere the keys might have fallen to no avail. At the next apartment, I lived for about 1.5 years, so I went through a couple of coat seasons, wearing the coats that I had suspected I left the keys in, but they never turned up. About 1 year ago, I moved into the place that I currently live. During the winter season, I wore both of the potential coats that would have held the keys. Still nothing. Well, and not very long ago, I was going through my closet looking for a light spring jacket, and moved one of these coats, and felt something in the pocket. It was the very keys that I had been searching for. The coat they were in was a floor-length wool dress coat with a very small, shallow pocket. There is absolutely no way that I could have worn this coat for multiple years and not noticed the keys. We have no mutual friends that have visited the house and would have had access to slip the keys in. There is no explanation for this, other than interdimensional travel. In essence, a glitch in the Matrix. It has truly left me questioning what I know may or may not be real. But I do certainly hope that the missing money shows up in the same pocket. Hey Raven. First off, I want to say that I love your channel and have loved listening to your stories for a long time. Your voice is fantastic for storytelling. Thank you very much. Now that the obligatory flattery is over, let me get to my story. So, as I've said, I've listened to you for a long time, and am fascinated by the glitch in the Matrix stories specifically. I've had plenty of glitches around me, such as things disappearing and then reappearing, in places that I had already methodically checked. This happenstance, however, struck me as something very poignant, and such an obvious glitch that I couldn't discount it to mere absent-mindedness. This happened about a week ago, mid-afternoon, while I was looking after my 18-month-old daughter, so I was definitely not under the influence of any mind-altering substance. And, while I have ADHD, I don't otherwise suffer from any mental illnesses. So, my daughter and I walked to the grocery store, which is about a 60-second walk from our front door. As we were walking back, I noticed that the grocery store maintenance men were mowing the lawn. One guy was using a weed whacker while the other was operating a riding mower, which was quite loud. We got into the house, and I noted that I could still hear the mower from the open balcony door. because it was quite warm, I decided to turn on the fan and place it in the opening of said balcony door. I placed the fan in the regular position, turned it on, and enjoyed the breeze. I thought to myself that it definitely drowned out the noise of the mower, and mentally noted how good the cool air felt. I stood there for a moment or two, enjoying the airflow, and then went about making a snack for my daughter. When I came back to the living room, I was warm again, so I put my back to the fan. All of a sudden, I felt the air stop, and the noise from the fan also ceased. I cursed myself quietly, thinking that the fan was now broken, as it was plugged in and turned on but no longer doing its thing. I went to check the dial. It has 3 settings, low, medium, and high, and I found it completely turned off. I then looked at the plug, and found that the fan was not plugged in at all. I had unplugged it earlier in the day to charge my cordless vacuum's battery, which was still plugged in, and I had forgotten by the time that my daughter and I had gotten back from the grocery store. Apparently, so had the Matrix, because I swear on my life I turned that fan on, and it drowned out the mower sound and had been blowing cold air on me. So, this one blows my mind. Literally. A few years ago, I found a beautiful tanzanite and diamond ring on sale at a jewelry shop. I was able to do a layaway plan for over 4 months, and finally brought it home. It's the most expensive piece of jewelry I have ever owned, and I love this ring. At the time, the ring fit perfectly. However, about a year ago, I needed to resize it as I'd put on some weight. I put it in its box and bag, took it to my car, and placed it in my glove compartment while I ran some other errands. I ended up having to go home before I made it to the jewelry shop, so I left the ring in the car, parked in a garage, and plans to take it in the next time I was out. 2 days later, I pull up at the jewelry store, and when I went to get the ring out of the glove compartment, it wasn't there. I tore the car up looking for it. It was nowhere. I go home and check everywhere just to be sure, but the ring is gone. The only thing I can think of is that someone got into my car during my errands and took it. Over the last year, I have cleaned and vacuumed my car several times, always hoping that I would somehow find the ring. About 3 months ago, I even bought a smaller, cheaper version that I found just because it was tanzanite, but it was not as nice as the original ring. 4 days ago, I hopped into my car, and guess what was sitting on the passenger floorboard? The bag with my ring. Packed up and ready for the jeweler, with the original receipts and everything. I have absolutely no idea where this ring could have been for the last year, and no clue how it would have been possible to miss it in the meantime. I tore this car apart multiple times looking for it. It's like it somehow just moved forward in time, and there's no one else that drives my car. I bought a set of 5 metal files, the sanding tools, in a little sleeve with 5 slots, one for each of the files. There's a square prism, a triangular prism, flat style, round, and a half round, with flat on the other side. They are distinctly a set with the same purple handles and are all the same length. This is the only set of files I have ever bought, and I bought them in 2019 when I bought a 3D printer for cleaning up my prints. They've been in the same box with all my printing stuff, and I use them maybe once a week. I've used them hundreds of times since 2019, so I know them very well. So here's the part where it gets weird. Today I opened up the case and went to pull out the half round to work on my cyber deck, and pulled each one out, realizing it was the wrong one. I thought, that's weird, I definitely just checked each of them. So I pull them all out, and lo and behold, there's no half round. But there are now 2 triangular prism types, the usual square, flat, and round rod type. I have never bought another file, and these came from a dollar store, so the chance of me even being able to find this exact set almost 5 years after buying them, and simply poking one unneeded one into the new case, and then losing the rest of the extras as well as the only half round, is such a ludicrous concept that there's no way that it happened. Like I said, I use these weekly. They have never left my room. I have never bought another set of files. They are absolutely a distinct set. I have used the half-round one many times, because the flat one, half-round, and round are the 3 most useful ones. I'm single with no family or kids or pets. I do have roommates, but we all have door locks. It would be difficult for them to find my tools at all since I work from home. So, how is this possible? Anyway, that's my rant. Okay, I believe you. We are definitely in a matrix. I live in a small town in Belgium, and something very strange happened to my partner and I. It all started on Tuesday, May 21st, 2024. We had to go to a party for her birthday, and to celebrate her new job at a restaurant with her parents. As usual in Belgium, it was raining all the way there, and continued once we arrived. We went to Namur, which is about an hour away. We arrived at the restaurant with her parents, and everything went very well. I realized I had parked my car poorly and moved it before starting the main course, and it was still raining outside. I went back inside and finished the meal, and everything was fine. At the end of the evening, everyone said goodbye and we were all happy. We headed back home in the rain. We were talking, and I asked her to stop talking because I needed to concentrate so that I wouldn't miss the upcoming exit off the highway in 50 meters. It was raining so hard that I thought it was becoming dangerous. Suddenly, I blinked and felt like we were no longer in the same place. I looked at the signs and realized we were near Mons, 30 minutes past my intended exit. And even stranger, it wasn't raining anymore and there wasn't a single drop of water on the road. I was puzzled, and said that I must have missed the exit, but driving 30 minutes further seemed strange. She told me that all she remembered was that it was raining. She stopped talking when I asked her to, and then nothing. It was as if we had become amnesic for those 30 minutes. I turned around on the road in Mons to head back the direction we came from. The cars were dry, and there was no rain on the ground again. I drove home, got out of the car, and looked at it. The car was so dry that I saw what looked like dry dust on the windows, and the car overall. My partner and I never understood what happened. I had vaguely heard of the glitch theory in the past, but now, I really feel like I experienced it. Hello, Raven. I recently found your channel and your Glitch in the Matrix stories, so I've got one for you. First, I need to clarify that I am very aware of my surroundings and the people I see outside. So, a few years ago, I saw an old man with a suitcase walking around. Little did I know I was going to see this man 3 more times in completely opposite streets that were impossible for him to get to in the span of a few minutes. He was also walking slowly, like an old man would. So, yeah, impossible for me to cross this man's path over and over again. This was just so random. I know the area very well because I've lived here for 23 years, so I know every single street. I was also with friends that day, so I told them every time I saw this man, but unfortunately I was too shocked to tell them immediately. as I was really creeped out by this man. So they never saw him for some reason. He was gone the moment that I went to tell them. Only at the fourth time he walked by, I immediately reacted and told them, "See, there he is again!" And they did see him too. So I wasn't tripping out. At the end, they didn't take me seriously, as this fourth time that they saw him was basically their first. I know what I saw, but none of my 3 friends believed this. I remember that day as clear as the sun shined, and I think about it every other day. How did this old man walk around my hometown in such random streets? He would literally pop up out of the most imaginable spots as well, as if he had speedrunned the entire town. My biggest question is, why did he have the suitcase with him, and what was in there? For many years, after a friend of mine had moved 2,500 miles away, I'd have this recurring dream of her, and we were just talking and walking what seemed like days. I figured I just missed our conversation and friendship, sadly. But year after year, I would be in a dream walking in a huge long line of people, meandering as we went up and down hills. And I would see the crowd was so big that I couldn't see the start of the line. But she was walking beside me talking about a million different topics, as if we were catching up on our lives now. I had originally met her in high school, and I had once said to her, "If you could pick any 2 places you wished you could go, where would it be?" She then said Italy and Greece. Those had been my exact choices. So I said if I one day called her up far into the future to go, would she? She promised she would. 20 years later, our church had a fantastic deal to visit those 2 countries. I got the brochure and my sister and I began to peruse it, getting more and more serious. Soon I contacted my friend offering the very tour we had once discussed 20 years ago. Only I was in Kentucky and she had moved to California all this time later. She still agreed to go and I was thrilled. One day we were just walking along a long cobblestone path, and the line of the tourists were led by different leaders and used big poles with a colored flag so that you could follow them and not become lost in the massive sea of humanity. I walked and talked to her, and we caught up with our lives. Days of walking and visiting sites. When suddenly, it hit me. This was the dream that I'd had for years and years. And after that trip, the dream never returned. I've heard some of the stories read out on here, so I thought I would share my own since I can't really explain it. Stephen Carl Stephenson was Rotten Robbie on the children's TV show Lazy Town, a show that I used to watch religiously. When I heard that he had cancer in maybe 2016, I was devastated and kept up to date with his story because he was my favorite character, and honestly a hero of mine. I read an article talking about his death in 2017, and went to Instagram and Tumblr to have it confirmed. Sure enough, he'd passed away, and I remember calling an old friend of mine to break the news to her. She and I talked about watching Lazy Town while we were on a band trip and how much we would miss him. A year passed, and I'd all but forgotten about the article. That wasn't until I found a recently uploaded Instagram post stating that he died in August of 2018. Confused, I looked it up and found the same news article that I remember seeing a year earlier. The only thing changed was the date of his death. I called up my friend and she said that she didn't remember that call that we had, and that she had found out about his death the day that he died. I saw countless posts memorializing him that I swore I had seen a year prior, and honestly, it kind of freaked me out a bit. I've heard stories like this before, but it's just so strange to experience it myself, and I still think about this from time to time. Did anyone else experience the same thing? Because the more I think about it, the more it freaks me out a bit. And thanks for listening to my story. Hi, Raven. First, a little bit about myself. I'm a staunch traditional Catholic, Latin Mass and everything. I even have a moderately successful Catholic YouTube channel, which shall remain nameless. This is important because my mind is closed to many things, such as the idea that life is a simulation. Although I have come to realize, thanks to recent events showing many conspiracy theories to be fact, that our world is not what they, the proverbial they, tell us it is. I'm not offering any alternatives. I admit I don't know what the truth is, just that they are lying to us. On to my experience. I was sitting on my deck one night, enjoying a beer and watching the sun go down, enjoying the slow progression of the sky growing darker. Except, at one point, for several moments, it stopped. Then it jumped ahead to catch up to where it should be. Not a quicker, gradual darkening, but all at once. Like someone flipped a switch. Yes, that's it. Like someone just flipped a switch. If 0 is the brightness of the day and 10 is the darkness of the night, it jumped from 4 to 8 like that. Again, like someone just flipped a switch. I ran inside to tell my wife, daughter, and son-in-law as they were living with us, and apparently I'm not the only one who saw it. My son-in-law told me the next day that he saw online that many people had reported seeing the phenomenon, and that they had offered an explanation. Light reflection this, solar flare that, yada yada yada. That it was just an optical illusion. And of course, they always say it's an optical illusion, but who are you going to believe? Us, or your lying eyes? So, that, my friends, was this week's Glitch in the Matrix collection, a collection of these strange, weird, and bizarre happenings that exist within our, I guess you could call it a simulation. I believe reality is a better word, because who can say if it's a simulation or if it's just a bizarre set of circumstances that exist with oddities in between point A and point B, if that makes sense. It doesn't, but let's pretend for a moment it does. Makes it weird, right? Yeah, anyways, good collection of stories, really bizarre ones. Some missing object stories that are a bit different than normal. And then some missing time stories, and then just some really weird stuff that, yeah, is, bizarre. Always good, always a fun time. Always enjoyable these glitch stories are, at least to me, and a significant number of you, hopefully. I know some of you have said you don't like these ones as much, but I'd have to say the vast majority do, so yeah. Hopefully, you, my friend, are in that vast majority. If you are, consider hitting the thumbs up button on this video. Consider hitting the like button on this video. If that works, it should light up if you're on desktop. So you can also subscribe to the channel if you're new and liked what you heard, and ring the little bell icon to get notified of all my content. July is content heavy month. You will enjoy this. It will be a lot. So hopefully you'll ring that bell. Or just keep my channel up at all times and refresh it every day at about 5:30 p.m. Central and see what happens. Let's see what happens, right? Yeah. You can also join Patreon or memberships. Couldn't think of the word Patreon. To get early access to content like this, other content, things that I do. Get access to other things depending on what you sign up for and how you sign up. And you can also do a super thanks, which is just a tip to the channel. Never expected, but always appreciated. Yeah. And then there's the thing that, if you're still listening to this point, you're probably waiting for, what we call the Word of the Week, which is something I do every week on the Glitch video that happens on Monday or Tuesday, typically Monday, sometimes Tuesday. And yeah. For For the word of the week, I give you a word, you use the word in a sentence, I then have to screenshot these words on Sunday or Monday whenever I make the video, put them all together, which takes forever, and then put them at the end of the video to celebrate those of you who left a comment. On the screen right now and several moments prior to now is a collection of all the amazing people who used last week's word of the week in the video. These people went above and beyond. I never expect people to do this, but I always appreciate that some of you do. So, to those of you who did, you are amazing. And if you didn't, that is okay. Again, there's no expectation, there's no pressure or anything like that, so yeah. Thank you again to each one of you who did submit a sentence for last week's word of the week. Let's move on to this week's word of the week. This week, the word of the week is tenacious. Tenacious. It means not easily pulled apart, cohesive, tending to adhere or cling especially to another substance, persistence in maintaining, adhering to, or seeking something valued, or retentive. Now, a good example of this is Ever the Tenacious One. I promise you to make July a content-heavy month. I promise you to put out as much as I can this month. Again, I am quite the tenacious one. There you go. Now you guys can't call me tenacious in your example sentence, because I did. Good luck. All that said, friends, hope you have a beautiful week. Hope I do see you again here very soon. Until then, remember, you are loved, you are valid, you are important, you are the best you that you can be. Do not forget it. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise. And until next time, my friends, much love, and of course, sleep well.